Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It's Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me in another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today I have a very special guest. I've been looking forward to speaking to this guest all week long. I have the one, the only, the oh so famous, Mr. Allen Levenson from General Motors. Allen, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks, Jason. How are you?
Sorry, it's like my best version of like a WWE intro. I know I didn't quite bring the excitement there, but I did my best.
It was terrific.
Hey, Allen, we got some really, really cool topics to talk about today, and I am so excited to get into some of these topics. But for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now, who don't know who you are and kind of what you do with General Motors, because I love your title, by the way. I think it's like 6 different titles, kind of all in one. Actually, let's start there.
It's a little long. I'll give you that.
So, Allen, what is your title right now with General Motors?
I am the director of the sales, marketing, and brand analytics team within the chief data and analytics office at GM. So yes, you're right. That's fairly long.
I love it, by the way. I was looking at, normally, with guests, I'll put like their titles down at the bottom. Like, I don't think I can make this one fit.
I would just say data and analytics. How's that?
There we go. That just kind of encompasses everything. Well, hey, Allen, for everyone out there watching, listening, I love kind of kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story, because I gotta be honest with you, I'm always fascinated, how people get started into this crazy little world we call the automotive industry. So I'd love to hear kind of your origin story of how you got started in automotive.
Sure, happy to do that. So as I think about my career, there's really 3 parts to it. The first part, I was a strategy management consultant. Right out of college, I worked with Bain & Company, and went off to business school, and after that with McKinsey & Company. Enjoyed that. Interestingly, I was always enjoyed cars. My dad and I were always into them as a kid. One of my clients, literally my first one right at Bain, was with Chrysler back in 1985. As well, I did some work with Mercedes when I was at McKinsey. So enjoyed that. Great experience, but really wasn't my calling in life to be a consultant. So I moved over, and then came up phase 2 of my career, came up the sales and marketing route with a number of consumer-based companies and retailers, as well as did an internet startup as well, when that was kind of the thing right at the beginning of e-commerce. Then for the last 20 or so years is now phase 3 of my career, all in the automotive space. Interestingly, I'm probably one of the few people that have experience in all 3, the dealer side of things, the vendor side, as well as the OEM or manufacturer side. So as I told you, I came up sales and marketing. I ended up with Asbury Automotive Group, which, as you know, is one of the public dealer groups. Started there in 2001, while it was still a private company, kind of in the early days of consolidation and of the so-called mega groups. So I was responsible for sales and marketing there. It was still a relatively small corporate office, newer company, so I got involved in a lot of different things there. I ran the internet operations. I was responsible for sales. We got a sort of a one-priced used car business off the ground that didn't last too long. It was pretty early back then for that. I was obviously involved in CRM, got the concept of equity mining, which we'll talk about going. We're one of the early companies to really dive into that. So great experience. The second role within the automotive space is made a change and joined up with a much smaller company called Prospect Vision, who was literally the first data mining or equity marketing company in the industry.
That's cool.
It was started by a couple of guys who were my partners. They brought me in as an equity partner, had a great idea, needed some help to kind of bring it to the next level. And so that's what I did. I was there for 8 years. Pretty exciting business. And again, a lot of fun, great for our dealers.
Well, I think it's just cool that you've been there kind of all the places, right? Like, I mean, look, you know how the dealers love to complain about their vendors. You know how the vendors love to complain about their dealers. You know how the dealers love to complain about their OEMs. Like, you've been in all those places, so it's cool, and it's really cool that I think could get some of your insights on some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. The first topic, we talked a little bit before we got to record, and I was like, yeah, this is a cool topic. I don't get to talk about this topic too often on a podcast, so I'm excited to talk about it. Is around inclusiveness inside kind of the automotive space. It's not a topic that's typically talked about. I'm in hundreds and hundreds of operations meetings every single year, from individual rooftops, dealer groups, and it's not something that's typically discussed. And I think this is something that, General Motors has taken a huge stance on, and they've been very public about, all right, their approach to inclusiveness. And I think it's something that we could really learn, from the individual dealership and even the dealer groups and I'd love to kind of get your story from what your approach or what your experience was with working with more of an inclusive company.
Sure. Happy to have that conversation. So the last piece was after Prospect Vision. I then joined up with General Motors about 4 years ago. And, you are correct. It is a incredibly inclusive company. Mm-hmm. I did not know that when I joined. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, to be perfectly blunt. I had spent my entire life kind of on the East Coast, mm-hmm. and was moving out to what I assumed was a older, established company in Michigan, and I really didn't know what to expect. The reason it's pretty directly relevant to me is I should have mentioned as well that I am a gay executive in the automotive space. I wasn't always. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily something that I am proud of or not, but that's my story, and we each have our own. I was married to a woman for many years. I have 4 amazing daughters. I came out to friends and family about 11 years ago now, but never was comfortable coming out in my professional life until I got to GM. And
in the automotive space, I think there's a lot that can be dissected there and kind of talked about, right? When I think in the automotive space, just in general, all right, we're not necessarily taught to be ourselves, right? It's very robotic, all right? These are the 12 steps to the sale. Here's exactly how you have to do your meet and greet, all right? This is exactly the way you have to dress. Here's your name tag. And there's not a lot of room, all right? Well, at least in the past, I'm seeing so much more, and I would say in the last 5 years, where staff and employees can really embrace who they are within the workplace, not necessarily just fitting into the mold that the workplace is looking for. And, it's like, how do you start that conversation?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, there's been a lot of progress, but if one were to generalize, we are not known as the sort of most open-minded,
it's true.
Progressive industry, particularly in the retail world. Mm-hmm. It is a little bit more of some of the male-dominated mm-hmm. World. And as I said, I just never quite felt comfortable, while at Prospect Vision, which is when I came out, I was calling on dealer principals and general managers all day long to try and get them to join up with our service. And, there's 2 ways to look at it. One way you could look at it and say, why bring it up? It's nobody's business what my sex life is. Nobody else tells me theirs. And so you could easily justify that it's just not something you need to bring up. And that was kind of the approach that I took, particularly knowing that it was not the most open area. That said, now that I've been at legitimately one of the most inclusive companies in the world, and we can talk about that, I can truly say it is so much better to allow people to be themselves, yes. as the expression goes, be able to bring their whole selves to work, and not have to keep this little secret. And it's just much better. You get people are more comfortable. They're themselves. They're happier. They're more productive. Diverse opinions are very important, and that's a big part of diversity. Is just you need it, whether it's male, female, white, black, whatever. You want different diversity of opinion to get to the best outcome. So, as I said, I wasn't there initially, but today can honestly say it is much better. So I would certainly recommend all of the dealerships out there to really try and follow what we've done at GM, where we've taken a whole number of steps to truly be inclusive.
See, I think that's the kicker is like, I think there's a lot of dealerships that would love to have these conversations. They just don't simply know what those first steps are, and it's funny because I did have a conversation similar to this about a month ago, where the dealership has learned that they can do a lot with a little. All right. And they would love to kind of maintain that model. All right. But to maintain that model is there's a heavy toll being kind of put onto their people. And, and I asked him, I said, well, what are you doing about it? Like, what's it making easier? I said, I'm really trying to push right now for people to kind of just be themselves when they come in. I've backed off of my dress code a bit. I've backed off, some of the stricter scheduling parameters and stuff like that. And, I'm really I want people to take ownership of their individualities, and I want to kind of process those individualities into my operation efforts. And, this was happening with a couple of his employees, and he noticed it, huge props for the fact that he acknowledged it. Right. And he's like, well, how can I duplicate that? And I thought back to it, and I said, well, we can't ever execute on a strategy within a dealership unless we have a process. And I think that's kind of where those first steps are. It's like, how do we have those initial conversations, and what are some of those first processes that kind of need to be executed in our culture and our operations? I'm sure you probably have some ideas, and I know General Motors has taken some of those steps. It's one thing to say it. It's a whole nother thing to actually put it into process.
Right. And the truth is, before we talk specifics, it's so important in this day and age, because I can guarantee you there isn't a dealership or any company in the world right now that isn't struggling with the war for talent.
Of course.
And as we all know, particularly with the millennials and the younger generation, it's all about lifestyle and feeling comfortable and, being able to work in an appropriate manner. That's what, give them credit. That's what matters and is important. And the companies that get it and react appropriately are the ones that are not only going to attract the best folks, but absolutely be able to retain them. So and it really is a big part of the recruiting efforts for General Motors.
I was just thinking, I got this a lot as a dealer, as a young salesperson. All right, my first dealership I worked at. It was a lot of suck it up, buttercup, and check it at the door. We weren't necessarily encouraged to, bring ourselves into it. We were told to check it at the door, whatever it was. Yeah. Right? It could have been anything. It could have been an argument you were having with someone. It could have been some family problems. It could have been personal issues. It didn't matter. You checked it at the door. And I feel like some of the most progressive dealerships out there have kind of gone away from that. But kind of what you were getting into, there has to be kind of a plan, and you have to be able to put it into place.
Yep. No. So again, there's multiple pieces to that. One, obviously, is on the recruiting front, and doing different things to make sure you are reaching out to the widest possible population, a group of folks. In the case of General Motors, this is, as we move to COVID, what's happening, we have what's called work appropriately, which basically it leaves it up to each group, each manager, each team to figure out where they want to work, when they want to work. So we are now hiring lots of people that are fully remote, that live anywhere in the country. That obviously is opening us up to a much wider, more diverse pool. And something like that would have, even 3 years ago, would have been just unheard of.
Absolutely.
But we all learned that, guess what? We can be very productive working in either a hybrid or literally fully remote standpoint. We actually, now I wouldn't expect every company to do this, but we actually are using, this is getting into data and analytics, AI software to help us sort of mitigate bias from the resume screening process, again, to make sure that we're getting a very diverse pool. We have various behaviors that we live by at General Motors, think customer, work as one team, et cetera. Well, a couple of years ago, when we set out under Mary Barr, our CEO's goal to be literally the most inclusive company in the world, we now have a new behavior, which is be inclusive.
Yes.
And we have meetings, whenever we have a large meeting at the company, it always starts out, it used to be with a safety message. Safety happens to be one of our other very important tenets. We now can start with either a safety message or an inclusive message. We get training on it. Whenever, we have our Monday morning meetings, my staff meetings, we always start out talking about the weekend and what you do and all that, just to make it fun. I'll be honest, I kind of go out of my way to mention something that I may have done with Jad, my partner.
Yep.
And I'll often say his name, and there's a reason for that. I want to kind of
You're being you.
normalize that it's
you're
okay and
normalizing
get
it.
people comfortable. So there are a number of very specific things that you can do to make people feel comfortable being themselves, et cetera.
And I do actually see the segue into the data analytics kind of part of our conversation today. I was having a conversation this morning, with a large marketing department, with a large dealer group, and they're looking at their data and it's just kind of a singular bucket, and they're not identifying the individuality of all the people within it. And it's kind of a cool segue. Look, an inclusive company allows people to be themselves. All right. A good dealership uses their data to identify the individuality within all of their audience, instead of just treating them all the same. It's funny because we're going to talk about equity mining. That was actually the biggest conversation I was having today. And here's the thing I think is always kind of interesting when I think of like data and equity mining. The fact that the company has my data, I know they have my data, and my expectation is that they should know me as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
I was complaining this morning because this one particular large group, I had actually scheduled a service appointment before I came in. I got to their service, the service inputter, and I went to go put in my phone number, and it just brought me to another form where it asked me for my first name, my last name, my vehicle, my make, my model, my year, my VIN. And I'm like,
yeah, they should have had all that.
Like, you have this. I bought a $60,000 vehicle from you. Why are you acting like you don't know me? And I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I know you got some thoughts on this as well.
Yeah. So as I said, it was interesting. I after leaving Asbury, I made the move over to Prospect Vision, the equity mining company. I had used that company as a service when I was at Asbury, and bar none, it was always our highest ROI, lowest acquisition cost per vehicle sold marketing expenditure ever. And just think about how much money every dealership, or in our case, even as an OEM, you spend the thousands or millions, or not GM billions of dollars. You're always trying to identify in any business people that are likely in market.
Yes.
And in the automotive space, that's really important. If you sell bars of soap, you know what? Even if I'm not looking today, if I see one on sale, I might want to buy it because I'll need it in 3 weeks. But a vehicle, you got to get it right. So
100%.
the concept of mining the data to figure out who is likely in market is so important. And, in the case of a car, it isn't always just months of ownership.
No.
It's a very big piece of it is the equity situation. If you could take somebody that's been in their car for 3 years, but if there's 10 grand buried, you're not going to be able to get them out. take someone that's been in their car 16 months and their $500 positive equity, and you reach out to them and say, guess what? Great news, Jason. I can get you out of your 2018 Chevrolet Malibu that you're paying $399 a month on, and into a brand new one, and keep your payment with no money out of pocket. That's a pretty good message. It's targeted to the individual. Yes. You're mentioning their current vehicle that they own. You're mentioning their current payment. And by using the data and pinpointing them correctly, you're identifying just those people who can get into a new vehicle. And in this case, keep their payment. So
I actually have a great example of this just happening actually to me. And, you know, and I like this because it really does kind of wrap up our entire, it kind of brings our conversation together, is about just identifying the individual and respecting the individual. So I drive a lot. I mean, a lot. I drive 5,000 to 8,000 kilometers a month. That's about, for our American listeners, it's about 3,000 to 5,000 miles a month. I mean, I get oil changes almost monthly. I know a lot of service managers in my area, and you know, my last vehicle, it's less than 3 years old. I put 200,000 kilometers on the vehicle.
You're not leasing that, I can be assured.
Well, luckily enough, the salesperson didn't offer me a lease, because if he had, I would have been, come on, are you serious? All right, but the vehicle just recently went in for service, and it's the full Cadillac converter. I got lower struts that need to be replaced. I need new tires on this. All right, I'm looking at like a $5,000 service bill, right? And they were proactive enough because they had the data, all right, that something pinged somebody. Somebody reached out and said, look, Jay, here's what's up. All right, you got 200,000 kilometers on your vehicle. It's a $5,000 bill. I actually went ahead on your behalf, checked what we can get on market value, because market value is crazy right now. All right. This is what I can do for you moving forward. Do you want to go ahead and do it? And I was like, yes.
Yeah, no, that dealership has software already installed. So it pops up and shows where you are in your equity situation and that you're coming in for service that day, so that somebody is notified. That's how using data and technology in this day and age allows it. Now, you still have to have the right process at the store level. But at least to start, you need the data to know that they did it. They did it appropriately.
They executed it perfectly, right? And you know what the cool thing is they acknowledged me as an individual. They knew that I drive a lot. Okay, so the solutions, you know, to your point earlier, they didn't offer me a lease. Okay, the solutions they provided was catered to me as an individual, and because I drive a lot, the vehicle they even highlighted was more fuel efficient than my previous vehicle. I mean, they just did a real good job of kind of wrapping it up. But to your point, it's all about process. All right, so even if we're talking about a dealership utilizing its data, a dealership becoming more inclusive, it comes back to the process, then the people, and then the execution of that. And I love the fact that you brought up kind of the future. That is the future of utilizing data. Now, let's talk a little bit about that future, because, man, there are some exciting things going on over at GM right now, and I'm not even sure which direction to head in. And we can talk about like new platforms and connectivity. We can talk about like just the direction of GM. I mean, the EV experience. There's just a lot going on over there. What do you kind of see kind of that future is? What gets you excited? Let's start there.
Sure. No, I mean, there's a lot of just really exciting things in the industry itself. I mean, this is potentially one of the most exciting times ever to be in the industry. And then I'll tie it a little bit to my world, again, of data and analytics. But as you know, we are in the world of mobility, where it isn't just about selling things made out of steel. So it's thinking about how the world of transportation and getting people from A to B is changing and doing it well. So yes, EVs is a very exciting time. We are finally hitting that inflection point. Yes. No question, General Motors, intends to be the leader. Quite frankly, we're be spending upwards of $30 billion in the next couple of years and have over 25 different EVs hitting the road. Not sure if you saw the Silverado EV during the Super Bowl. Not sure if you guys watched that up in Canada, but it's pretty exciting. But we've got a whole slew of EVs coming, and it's important. It's important to the environment. It's important to to customers. So that's an exciting one. And again, those vehicles are almost supercomputers on wheels.
Yes.
So a lot of additional services that'll be coming with those that are all based on data to help bring that to life.
So that's what I was thinking, right? I mean, there's so much connectivity now with these new platforms that are coming out. I love data. You love data. It must be like, oh man, there's going to be some fun stuff. Like, where do you think, or maybe what do you think is some of the cool strategies or some of the things that might be executed here soon now with this new found data? All right. What can we look forward as a consumer?
Sure. I mean, a lot of it, and what I personally am spending a lot of time on, is using it to deliver truly personalized, again, we're coming back to that, customer experiences. As we move into the future, the experience is truthfully as important or more important to consumers than the vehicle itself. And again, in order to personalize, you have to have the data. So I'll give you one very specific little one that we just implemented, but it's fresh, is we have the connected vehicle data, and we'll talk about that to any customer that opts in, and they have to opt in. But if they do that and they give consent for us to use their data that we pull off the vehicle, we can offer them some really cool stuff that they'll love. We have, I think, 16 million cars on the road with our OnStar connected services and safety and security. Great. One of the very most popular uses is what's called remote access, being able to, from your phone, do a number of things, one of which is start your car.
Yep.
And living here in Michigan, when it's pretty cold, everybody loves to start their car before they leave, and obviously the same to precondition it in the warm states to cool it down. One of the things that people always do is they kind of forget, and you're ready to go, and it's, why didn't I remember to start the car? So one of our recent products that we've just come out with is using artificial intelligence, AI. We were able to predict when a customer is likely to go on a trip, and then send them a reminder message ahead of, 15 minutes ahead of time. So if we know, Jason, that you leave at 7 a.m. most Monday mornings, Tuesday morning, whatever, we can send you that message. And we are. And as a reminder, and quite frankly, if it's a snowy day and we see there's traffic, we'll send it 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier if we see that you're low on fuel. An add-on to that will be notifying people that their windows are down, and if we see it starting to rain or they forgot to lock their door. All of these things are just personalizing, making for a better experience, making people want to really feel a part and enjoy driving their vehicle.
I just want to feel more connected to it. See, I've had a big push for the last 10 years in all my consulting efforts is I want the dealership to feel more connected to the customer, either through their marketing or through their operations or any of their processes. And now I feel like we're getting to this really cool place where there's this sense of connectivity, not only to the dealership, but to the manufacturer and to the product. And it creates like this triangle effect of connecting to each other. And I just think it's so cool. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to the day I can step into a car and it automatically changes the ambient light to orange because it knows I'm in the car.
Right. But truthfully, that's coming. That is one of our services. It's called Themes, and you can choose the music type, the color. There's a whole variety of things, the way in which it drives, the speed. And as you know, these days vehicles, they change over time. We have the ability to do over-the-air updates and make changes very much personalized to you.
So now do I get to create this profile and then kind of like with my phone, when I move from the one version of the phone to the next one, does everything just kind of go along with me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whether it's your seat settings, whether it's your radio settings, again, personalizing and making it, just a seamless ownership experience from one vehicle to the next. There's so many different things that are coming.
I'm so excited for that. I really am, right? Because I think as consumers, we want to feel connected. We want to feel more connected. And I think of some of the best products that I own all right, that I use on a regular basis, I feel there's a sense of connectivity. Like, I talk to this thing on a very regular basis. But if people that are not watching or not or listening versus watching, I'm holding my phone right now. I talk to my phone. My phone talks back to me. I didn't want to say its name because they'll probably kick in and start asking me a bunch of questions. But there's a sense of connectivity. And, you know,
no question about it. They've done an incredible job. A phone is just an extension of your life today. And we very much envision the same with the vehicle. And quite frankly, actually, the app on your phone as being a very important part of your relationship with your vehicle. A lot there. And also, even in vehicle, a lot will be coming into what's called the in-head unit, where you can directly communicate back and forth and do a lot in the vehicle. Again, having the access to the data and the analytics. A lot of pretty exciting future there as well.
There's so many cool things. I do want to bounce back a little bit because I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper into some of your data analytics strategies. And I'm thinking specifically for our audience, you know, we have a lot of managers and marketing managers that are internet managers are listening to this. And I think there's just a lot of people out there that are always still just looking for good ways to utilize their data in the sense of connection. And I think connection's key. So now, okay, so that is one thing that I've noticed, a big shift, I would say probably in the last 2 to 3 years, okay, is the data has been used there, but the data has been kind of used with the intent of creating a transaction. Right? Like, hey, your vehicle's in an equity position and you should come buy this one because it's $22 less a payment, right? I'm finding some of the more progressive dealers are looking at their data and they're looking at how can we use this data to better connect with the customer. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that and maybe some strategies.
Sure. To use a little bit of the lingo, there's a lot of focus these days on what's called next best action or next best experience. And it's actually used, again, I'm not one to use a lot of lingo, but that's where you can use artificial intelligence or AI to figure out what is truly the right next action or experience for any individual. So for me, it might be based on what we know about me and where I am in my ownership cycle. It might be a message because I'm in equity or I'm nearing the end of my lease to offer me a message to buy a new vehicle. However, for you, Jason, it could be a safety message because of your vehicle. It could be, you might be new in your vehicle. There's all this new technology, and quite frankly, people don't understand half of it in most vehicles. The whole educational aspect is really important to teach people, explain to them what's in their vehicle. So that might be the right next thing for you. So again, you're using the data, and where AI comes in is it helps you look at it. The advanced analytics lets you look at and say, people who look like Allen who are here likely will want a message on lease end versus people who are experiencing where they are in their life cycle and have owned the kinds of vehicle as Jason might need a message explaining to them how to use the automatic parking feature of their vehicle. So that's really where we see the world going. We're spending a lot of time on that at General Motors. We need to continue to partner with our dealers to make it a truly cohesive experience from dealer to consumer to manufacturer. You know, as you know, and at least at General Motors, we are just all in with our dealer partners. We have 4,000 plus of them, and they are an extremely important part of our greatest asset. And that's never going to change.
And you know what, I will say, between us, I've worked with a lot of GM dealerships. My first dealership I worked at was a GM dealership, and out of all the manufacturers I work with, I get a lot of positive response. Like, Jay, it's just getting better. Like this, we're getting stronger and stronger. Connection, right? I mean, look, it is what it is, right? There's the wholesaler and there's the retailer, right? But I think that there are certain OEMs that are really focusing on how we just better that connection, but then also how we bring the customer into that connection, and we really make this a shared effort. And I think that's awesome, that GM is really pushing the envelope of, not just connecting to the customer, but connecting the dealer to the customer and to themselves, and just making this a strong relationship.
Yeah, still ways to go, no question about it, because you have a lot of different databases and data sets, and they don't all talk to each other, so there's a lot of work to continue to get better. But there's certainly the interest and a lot of work happening to do just that.
Well, Alan, I know we're towards the tail end of our time today, and I'm sure there's probably a lot more. We can go deeper down these rabbit holes, right? But hey, before I let you go, I got one last question, because this is one mainly for me. All right, your favorite GM vehicle, don't matter which era. I need to know a model and a why it's your favorite.
This might be a weak answer, but I'm going to go with the one sitting in my parking lot right now, in my driveway. I have the Cadillac XT6.
All right.
What I love about that vehicle is it's like the perfect size and ride. It's got the third row. So whenever I need that, and any of my kids are visiting or friends, you can get 6 people in there. But unlike some of the larger truck-based vehicles, it's so easy to drive. It drives like a car. It does not feel like anything big. And so I just love it. I would, I'll never go back, whether it's the Buick version that's similar, which is, the Enclave, or the Chevy Traverse. I just love those 3-row crossovers that are so a big package, but real easy to drive and handle. So I'm a real fan.
One of my first cars I ever sold was exactly that by GM, and I still think one of the most underrated crossovers GM ever built, and that was the Pontiac Aztek.
Yeah, well, you're in the minority on that one. I will say that.
I will say the most nostalgic vehicle.
Most nostalgic vehicle for me was my first car was a puke green Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, and I think I think the hood on that thing was about 20 feet long,
because it probably had a 400 in it, didn't it?
It was pretty fast. That was a great car. So.
Let's see. I think the first GM vehicle I owned was a Sunfire. Oh yeah, I was a cool kid at school, man, driving that Sunfire.
I'm sure you were.
Hey, Alan, I know we're towards our tail end, but I know we could jam for a lot longer. Before I let you go, though, for everyone out there that's watching and listening right now, and maybe would love to connect with you or kind of just follow along with your social journey too, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I am there under my name, General Motors. You'll find me very quickly, and I'm happy to help out, and particularly folks that might be coming from the same place as me in the dealer world, where there's still a lot of room to improve, and so happy to be of help however possible.
Alan, thanks for taking the time to chat with me and being open and just being yourself. I think if there are people out there watching and listening, to this and they get some value from that, I think it's just tremendous. And I really appreciate just your total transparency. Alan, thank you again for your time. You have yourself an amazing day.
You bet. Thanks, Jason. You as well.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.